start. First of all, I would like to thank all our audience for preferring us. Be the best. Also thank for Co-op Hub for organizing this event. Today we're going to talk about data, its identity, how to protect it, how it's getting under a lot of fire from different aspects of the world. The speakers are really excellent. I had a meeting with them just 15 minutes ago. That really impressed. We have a wonderful lady.
Thank you.
So I'm not going to talk about the CVs of the panelists or the speakers. You can check them out, or all of us, on the LinkedIn. And we already decided the order of the speeches. Initially, we will talk about 3 minutes. And actually, I'm not going to ask any questions. The speakers can speak about anything that they like. And then we have second round for another 4 minutes. And then please ask your questions after 4 minutes. I think we will be covering approximately about 40 minutes. And after 40 minutes, we have about 10 to 15 minutes of question time. And if you don't ask any questions, we will continue speaking. Okay. So we would like to start with Can Bey. He is one of our best leaders in Turkey, especially on security and how to make sure that everything works properly. So, Can Bey, please take the floor.
Thank you very much for introducing. So, first of all, maybe a couple of words about the background. So, my company, Güven, is established in 2003, and the first digital signature service provider in Turkey since 2005, actually. And so far, we are focused on issuing digital certificate and digital IDs for the individuals to be able to help them to sign forms, applications, documentation, other things on the internet from anytime, anywhere. And we are focused on the developing projects as well for the companies and for the institutions to be able to carry on their business and data exchange on electronic world and on a more secure environment. So far, regarding to BTKs, telecommunication groups, telecommunication institutions, reports that we can say that 3.5 million qualified digital certificates is issued so far. And I can say that I think half of it, maybe Mr. Oktay Adel will maybe better than me, but I think half of it is used for governmental institutions, for governmental applications, right? And half of them are used mostly in C2G and B2G applications. So when we're talking about the digital signature, actually we'd like to combine it with KYC applications. First, maybe a couple of about, not going in very detail, but about what digital signature is. A qualified digital signature is the electronic form of the handwritten signature. That means that if you sign something electronically, that binds you legally as well. And it's a legal form of the handwritten signature as well. That means that if you sign something, you are liable and responsible if you sign something right with your handwritten signature against the court. That's why it's very important. With the qualified digital signatures, you may ensure that in an electronic transaction, a data has sent is never changed or altered because some technical security issues. And maybe more important thing that the data has sent belongs 100% to the sender, and you cannot deny it. You cannot deny it because it has a legal background. That means that we have a law about it. It's 5070 law. And regard to the law, an electronic signature is the same what you do with your handwritten signature. But when we would like to combine this with the KYC applications, besides digital electronic signature, qualified electronic certificates is important for us because qualified electronic certificates are digital ID of the person. When some person asks for a digital signature and come, for example, to Egon or any digital electronic service provider, the first thing we have to is check the person. Is he or she a real person who apply for us. The first thing that we have to see him or her face to face. And after that, we see the ID, a valid ID of the person. And that means that we have to be sure that this is the real person who applied for us. After that, we get the information like name, surname, and other national ID numbers, put in a digital ID and sign it electronically. That means that all digital signature service providers have a valid digital ID as well. What makes us different comparing with other KYC applications? We can say that it's very important. In qualified digital certificates, the information set in the file is not a self-declaration of the customer or of the user. There is a trusted third party, and trusted third parties or digital signature service provider put the information in it, and it's not possible to alter it, it's not possible to change it, or it's not possible to delete any data in a certificate. That's why that makes qualified digital certificates a very important player in the KYC applications. Three main issue is important for the KYC applications on security-wise, I can say. The first one is that the background and the infrastructure. Digital signatures are working on PKI infrastructure, and this one is the most secure infrastructure so far in digital transactions. They are used more than 20 years, but I can say that it is still used in blockchain as well. So new technologies are using, because of the security aspects, PKIs in their infrastructure as well. Second thing is that the process, I mentioned about it, that when someone asks for a digital signature or digital ID, we have to check the person face-to-face and some other processes. This is the second security aspect. The third one is that meet all the requirements 100% for two-factor authentication. When a digital ID is issued for a person, we give it in a USB token or a hardware, and they can reach them with a password that makes it meet the requirements for the two-factor authentications. In conclusion, it's possible to say that digital IDs are one of the most secure and one of the most usable applications for KYCs. For example, in Turkey as well, for example, for government gateway application, Turkey GovTR, or in a number of mobile banking applications, digital signatures and mobile signatures are used for the KYC. That makes it, the reason of that is that makes it easier, cheaper, simpler, and more safer. Now we know that all banks are spending yearly, maybe I think more than $100 million for KYC applications, and it's possible to say that digital IDs of the digital signature is one of the best solutions for that one.
Okay, John, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Actually, my company, Akman, is a very small company, but we are fully e-signature authorized, and I'm very happy.
We congratulate you.
I'm working with very large multinational companies that we talked about. I'm sending them all electronic invoices, but still they were asking me, oh, can you please send a hard copy? So we are extremely advanced, so thank you so much for that. Well, we have another great speaker from France. Nadim, welcome. And thank you for coming. And I think Nadim is going to talk about blockchains and
KYC
and so on. So please take the floor.
Thank you. So hi everyone, my name is Nadim, and I head the business development team at Cambridge Blockchain. So Cambridge Blockchain, we're a software application. We're founded 4 years ago, headquartered in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the US. We also have an office in Paris where I'm based and an office in Beijing in China. So we're a software company. We make digital identity enterprise software. So we have a software that basically does three things. It stores personal data, it shares that data, and it validates it. And we do this using the highest levels of trust and security. Our main application, our main focus today has been on the KYC use case. If people here in this room have more than one bank account, you all know that you all have had to go through this whole very cumbersome onboarding process with your bank, having to send your data, whether it's physically or electronically. And it's the same process every time. And it takes a long time, and it's a real pain. It's a pain in the ass for you guys, and it's also a lot of cost for the banks. When we're thinking of customer onboarding process, it is the single worst area of customer service for financial institutions today. So there's a real pain point, and our solution solves it today. Our solution basically improves the KYC process and the customer onboarding process for banks while making sure they comply with data privacy regulations like GDPR or other national ones. The way it works, our position is one that gives back to the customer the control over their own identity. So you own your own identity. And to do this, we have created what we call a PDS, Personal Data Service. It comes in the form of a mobile application or a web application, and it stores all of your personal data. I'm going to give you an example of how this would work in Turkey. Let's say I move to Turkey tomorrow. Love Istanbul, by the way. It's a really nice city. I move to Turkey tomorrow. I want to open my first bank account at Akbank. I'm going to, through the application, ask for Akbank to open the bank account. Akbank's going to ask me for a copy of my ID, a proof of residence, and so on and so forth. I'll consent and share my documents through my application. Akbank will receive them, and they'll have to go through this very lengthy and very cumbersome process of data validation. They have to make sure that the copy of the ID that they received is right, it has not been tampered with, it has not been stolen, and so on and so forth. They have to check against different databases. This whole process takes a lot of time, and it's the exact same process across all financial institutions in the country or in different countries. This is not the KYC itself. The KYC is just deciding whether I accept you as a customer or not. But before that, they have to do a series of different checks. So they do all these checks, and instead of just stopping here and onboarding you after 2, 3 weeks, whatever it takes, they'll go on a private permissioned blockchain, and they will write down an attestation of the different validation they've made. It's a hash, if you want, or a cryptographic proof from which you can never go back to the initial document. So the plain text data, the data itself, is never stored on the blockchain. It's stored somewhere else in secured databases. But you'll have an attestations of the validation on the blockchain. Then, a couple of months later, a couple of weeks later, you want to open another bank account or take a loan at Active Bank, for example. You're going to ask for Active Bank for that. They'll ask you for the same documents that you'll consent and share through your application. And then instead of Active Bank going through the whole process themselves, they'll just go on the blockchain, compare the documents they've received against the attestations there. If they see that they match, they'll know who checked what and when. They'll know that Akbank checked this document at this time, this date. Maybe there's another bank that checked this other document this time, this date. So they'll be able to rely on a much thicker stack of data that has already been validated in order for them to do their own KYC. So the whole process, the whole onboarding process that usually takes 2 to 3 weeks will go to 2 to 3 hours and sometimes even minutes. And this is what we're solving. We're basically improving the whole onboarding process. And this whole thing, we're going live in Luxembourg in a few weeks or months with our partner called LuxTrust and the 600,000 retail banking customers there. This is the first live application of this kind that exists anywhere in the world. So we'll be doing this with the whole country of Luxembourg. And one last thing I want to talk about. So we've been funded by different companies, but I'm very excited to announce something that came up yesterday. PayPal has also invested in our company, and we'll be looking to work on different KYC applications and to improve also their customer onboarding processes.
Does it have to be certified, Nadim, that things can work cross-functionally in different banks?
Yes, it does. Now, it has to be done on a governance level. It has to be done within a country, or it's difficult to do this on an international or pan-European or pan-regional. You can choose one region or one specific country and do this. The banks and the regulators and the government bodies have to work together and to develop such processes. But the idea is to improve the life of everybody, whether they're retail customers, corporate customers, institutionals, and others.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Okay, well, our next speaker is a lady, and she's one of our top banking experts.
Thank you.
She's going to talk about digital banking and
Yeah.
payment systems, right?
Yes, right.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually, good afternoon to everybody, and it's very excited to be there, and nice to meet with you. I just want to ask a question. Have you ever experienced digital banking of any bank? Sure. Are you happy with this?
No.
Still, yeah. And how was it actually 10 years ago? For example, it wasn't like that, isn't it? So day by day in Turkey, everything is evolving very fast. So I would like to mention that we have two generations in Turkey right now. Yes, I am the head of digital banking and payment systems in Aktifbank, but I observe that we have to actually serve to two kind of people in Turkey. So it's a little bit similar to Europe, but very young generation is in front of us. Why? Before 80s are the digital immigrants, but after 80s now we have digital natives. So digital natives, what are doing? So we have to focus on them and actually address their questions. They want everything immediately, isn't it? You have maybe your child or your experience, even your staff is like this, isn't it? They want to promote anytime, so they don't ask if I am experienced or not. So this is the case for Turkey too. And the Turkish customer, even though we focus on the immigrants, the digital immigrants or digital natives, we have to address their questions immediately. They don't want to deal with the document stuff. So they want to take the service quickly. They don't want to be even on the queue, isn't it? So you have to convince them, yes, you have to wait like this. Yes, it's okay. But they don't need to wait. So what we have to do? So within, I think, 25 years in Turkey, especially the payment systems evolved enormously. So even the banks are investing their technology mostly to payment systems and digital banking issues. They don't invest anymore to branches, but they are getting closer and close. So they are actually not opening anymore on the high streets, but they are going backward streets. This is the case. So everybody, even though you are on the type 5 bank, you have to manage the system like this. So we know as Aktifbank, as my friend suggested also us, thank you for this case, not Akbank at the same time, but being parallel to this one is great for me. Thank you very much. So being Aktifbank, we are digital only bank. Yes, we have just 10 branches and we don't like them. Actually, we serve like e-commerce banking or some kind of corporate banking issues. But we focus on customer, their needs. We want to actually solve their problems. What we have done, actually, briefly speaking, yes, we have many things. We have this Pasoric issue. We have 4.5 million customers that we serve just by through payment systems and digital onboarding. We do digital onboarding exactly, but still we need wet signature. What is this wet signature? Actually, it is the process of knowing your customer. Yes, you are Betty Gül. Yes, I am Betty Gül. And then we put all the documents. Yes, she is Betty Gül. But sometimes even bankings and all the operation stuff, if she is Betty Gül or not. Yes, she is Betty Gül. Then putting their all files into their archive system. Actually, we can do better. If we manage Turkish banking industry like this, we evolved in many documents, and we are almost a leader in payment systems in Europe. We have installment opportunities. We have many things, and I think we are the advanced market in the European side. So we can manage also, we can achieve this wet signature issue too. All banks, even Akbank, Aktifbank, and I think the other banks are doing so well. We do onboard customer, digital. You don't need anything. Yes, you know your customer, you write down the name, you give the address, etc. But at the end of the day, customer, I think, doesn't need to has to meet with a courier or field staff, isn't it? So we can achieve this. And many authorities are there also, and many of friends are there. And I think regulatories can help to achieve this issue because of this new generation, this young generation. I think they can help to our problems. I would like to give just an example, and then maybe we can continue afterwards. Now we have driverless cars. self-service, isn't it? So people, maybe next year, I don't know, maybe within 5 years, will prefer, rather than going with a car driver, but with driverless cars. They can park, they can do everything. Maybe we can call the taxi and go just by driverless car. So everything is going to be self-service. So what we can do, we can approach to the Turkish banking industry more revolutionary, much more self-service. Yes, we achieved some phase, but we need a little bit more, and do our experience and optimize the customer experience at advanced levels. This is my talk, and then maybe afterwards we can continue. Thank you.
Talk. Actually, it happens spontaneously.
Yeah, really. Okay, it's a good point then. Thank you.
Spontaneous and with a wonderful name, particularly that nobody can make a mistake on your account.
Sure.
And when I got promoted to management position, they all told me that I should understand this Y generation. And just when I was trying to finish understanding them, I said Z generation.
Yeah.
Now they're saying Alpha is coming.
Yes, it's the case, but we have to mention, yes, these rapid solutions are very, very crucial. And I think we have to endorse them, so we have to understand the needs exactly.
Now I understand my children. I give them a credit card and that's it.
Yes, but the spending behavior, then it's up to you. You have to solve the... Yeah. Okay.
Okay, we have another great speaker. Leonidas, thank you for coming. And I think you're going to talk about data protection, regulation, and so on from Lithuania. I hope you also enjoyed Istanbul a little bit as well.
Yes, so thank you very much. My name is Liudas. I came from Lithuania. And actually, I will just extend the rollout of this talk, because what we do is we help the financial institutions and the other obliged entities under the AML laws in Europe to board the customers quickly. And basically, how does it work? So the customer wanting to open the account, he goes to the bank app or website or something, shows up his face, then the document itself, and that's it. It's 3 simple steps, and the account is opened. And there are quite a bunch of the banks. I think the bankers know in Europe that operates this way, and have millions of customers around the world. Yeah, so from the regulation perspective, yes, it has to be allowed first, but there are some risks involved into that. Yeah, so the first and the biggest risk is actually the identity theft as such, because if looking how it involved in Europe. So first it was just sending the document copy over the internet and that's it, and that was enough to open the account. And we all understand nowadays what kind of risk does it have with it. And of course later there were risks of the money laundering itself, of the fraud risks, to be sure that this is the person that represents the document, that the document is valid. Yeah, so as already mentioned, that is not stolen, that is not in some kind of records, then the person itself that is not sanctioned, is not politically exposed, and so on and so on. So there's lots of checks that has to be made. And on the other side, there is a regulation of the data protection. Yeah, so of course there are some exclusions for the financial institutions about the checks itself that they can perform because of the AML regulation. But from the person's perspective, they all insist to be private, unknown, unexposed, and so on and so on. Yeah, so there's lots of issues with that, and the combination for the user experience and actually for the needs of the financial institution is something that everyone is now looking about and trying to reach that balance, that right balance. So, so the main issue here is actually how to make that seamlessly, because yes, the current generation of the user requires just doing right now. Yeah, so like we are speaking now like 2 minutes, and the account has to be open. On the other hand, the requirements are increasing. Regulation is getting tough, and basically the fines that we see, especially in Europe, I don't know if you heard about that, but in the Baltics we have quite a big scandal with the major banks and huge fines about that, and then this balance has to be somehow reached. Yeah, and then that's the case about knowing actually knowing the customer, but still providing the service. Because if you don't serve them, somebody else will do that.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure that they are protected and?
Well, so you see, we are a technology provider, and basically we integrate quite a lot of things into our solution. Yeah, so starting from signature, from signing the documents in different countries, electronic signatures, quite a lot of solutions for understanding if the user is that user. But if looking from the perspective, you see, we are still focused on the financial industry itself, yeah. So and on the needs of the financial industry, not on the user, yeah. So and I think it will still remain the same, because the fines are higher and the risk is higher there in the financial industry part, not on the user part, yeah. So so what user can do is actually just not to open the account. But from the financial institution, the fines that they can face and the risk they face is much higher.
It was regulated, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, and welcome again. And so our next speaker is Dr. Oktay Adelier. He comes from Turkish National Research Institute, TÜBİTAK. I work very closely with TÜBİTAK as a university industrial relations, and very respected, and doing not only research but also on information technologies as well. So Oktay, please explain us.
I want to comment on some issues that my colleagues mentioned before me. The first thing is the data. I want to criticize this issue in Turkey, in my country. There are many technological solutions in Fintech and governmental institutions, very good technological solutions. Even that, they continue to collect a lot of data about citizens and people, and they store them. They may have good reasons for them, because they have some risk or they want to use them for marketing purposes. But from the privacy point of view, it is not legible to store them and use them for other purposes on the behalf of the institutional benefits without informing the citizens or people. This arises from two reasons. The first reason is tradition. On the past, the institutions are already do this in this manner. They collect a lot of information about data about the people to be sure that they are the right people on front of them and continue to give the service to them. Second is they want to be aware of lose this customer in their hands. They want to touch the customer by using those private information in the future. This is not legislative point of view, not fair. It must be changed, because technology is involved in Turkey, especially in financial institutions. There are good customer know your customer solutions, mechanism, technology there in mobile and on website platforms. They can reduce a lot of data in their hands and make happy the people in the country. The second issue, the technological side, we are doing a lot of research on those issues. Especially in my department, we are working on ID technologies, authentication technologies. We have blockchain laboratory in our institutions. We are working on behalf of the governmental institution how to solve their problems in terms of authentication, access control, and privacy. I see that even those new coming technologies, there is a need to use them. The centralized based authentication, the federated based authentication is coming a little bit older compared to the new coming technologies. Distributed authentication is needed for well digitized environments. Ms. Bettigul has mentioned they transform their business services completely to digital environments, and the people and customers get their services fully from the digital environment. They use the business services. In that manner, the new coming distributed technology, which is based on blockchain, can be used. We are working also on these issues very well. But my opinion is it needs time to be used in large-scale application in governmental institutions, also in financial institutions, because I see a lot of companies are working on the technological solutions, but they are looking only from their benefit, from their capabilities. But the market needs much more large capabilities and specifications in terms of anonymity, privacy, availability, usability, and so on. It needs to be maturized, this kind of technologies in the near future. But I believe after that pilot applications, it can be used in everyday life on the benefit of citizens and people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Octave. Actually, Octave is also working at the encryption department as well.
Yes.
And, I worked with Tubitak many years ago when we first established the chip manufacturing, the ASIC manufacturing in the ETA.
We are continuing to manufacture ASICs.
Founders there.
Exactly.
And I think the hardware is as important as what you built on the software, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think it's still continuing at
We are
a very high
continuing
level.
for special purposes, for Minister of Defense and some special governmental institutions like police and Minister of Interior.
Yes. It's an excellent facility in Gebze and
Yes.
a wonderful place. Yes, thank you so much. And maybe you can answer further questions as the audience waits. Okay, thank you so much. And our next speaker comes from Ireland. Eric, thank you so much for coming all the way from Dublin. A wonderful country, green.
Thank you.
I hope you found the same greenery here in Istanbul as well.
Not so far, but between the airport and here is not so far.
About your subject about biometrics and you know how you're managing your business. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, indeed, and I hope as we go on, we'll have the chance to kind of engage with some of the issues that Oktay has raised. But I should tell you where I'm coming from first, I suppose. So I'm here representing Daon. Daon is a software company. We were founded in Dublin almost 20 years ago now, and we've been building large-scale systems using particularly biometric technology in all those years. And in relation to the topics for this panel, what we hope to do is to solve part of the problems that I think fintechs and insurance companies and banks have around addressing fraud, but doing that in a way that kind of meets their digital transformation needs and that hits the different generations that Betty Gurr mentioned. One of our first customers was USAA in the United States. They now have 3 million customers who are using a biometric when they access their accounts. But they have customers over the age of 80 years. So that's a generation we didn't mention yet. But I think it shows you that assumptions we make about technology are not always natural, if you like. So what we really try and do is not use biometric in a scary way, but use them in a way that, not use them in a scary way, but use them in a way that really makes it easier to introduce security for the customers of the types of organizations that I mentioned. So if I can access my account or if I can approve a payment and use only a mobile phone that I'm already carrying around, and then my face or my voice or my fingerprint or my palm, then I don't have to remember anything complex. I don't have to carry anything special around. That's a great experience. So we do that in the area of banking. We do it for Akbank here in Turkey. Apologies for mentioning Akbank again, Betiko. We'd love to do business with you too.
Just
We do it in the area of payments for Visa and for MasterCard, so you can approve a payment using your finger or your face with our technology and their networks. We do it in the area of strong authentication for wealth management customers with BNP Paribas. And we integrate the onboarding process and the kind of identity verification process with authentication for banks like Capitec Bank in South Africa. So there you can capture your face as part of verifying your identity. When you're opening an account with that bank, as they're growing rapidly, they need an easy way for customers to open their account. But then once you've done that, you can use that as the way that you access your account immediately. So there's no separation, just great from a security point of view and great from a customer point of view. So happy to develop more of that, more of those topics as we go, but that's who we are.
Okay, well, it's really, really great. Thank you so much. Now let's continue. Gambe, how do you see the market evolving? Is it going to be easier, or how the customers are going to take more value-added services on top of what you're providing? Can you tell us a little bit
For
more
prospects,
about
you mean, right?
Yeah.
So before prospects, maybe the one what about the expectations of expect is that using the digital signature or electronic signature needs much more applications to be served. So that's why we need banks or other institutions to serve their services and electronic environment with digital signatures. When we come to the prospects, we hope that. For example, in Turkey, we issue digital signatures in conventional way in some hardwares, USB tokens. We issue them on mobile phones as mobile digital signatures. But with the new digital ID cards, we plan to start using or issuing digital certificates on the new national ID cards as well. That means that will ease a lot of the life of the people, the life of the owner of these ID cards, using the electronic signatures is easable to reach more than services for them. I think so far 37 million national ID cards is served, and if we have the regulations finalized, so we will be able to issue the electronic signatures on these cards as well, and that makes life easier for us. The second thing is that what we hope we will have in Turkey as well. You know that European Union have a new regulation, not new, but go live in 2018 in the EIDAS regulation, electronic ID regulations. That will make life much more easier in European Union. There are some aspects. So the first one is that if one citizen, for example, from Spain have a digital signature, can use it in all 31 countries in European Union. That will be valid. The second thing is that new regulations in European Union make it easier for citizens to get the digital signature. For example, we have to make a face-to-face recognition verification for the customers, but new EIDAS regulations make it easier and make it easable with video recognition. The second point is that we have to issue the digital signatures on a hardware, and all the hardware should belong to the citizens. But now new regulations in the European Union with EIDAS, it's possible to make a cloud signature. So if we have this kind of things, this kind of application in Turkey as well, that will make it much more easier. The second prospect is that even digital signature is an electronic signature is an older technology. We plan to combine it with technologies like blockchain. I think that until the end of this year, digital signature will combine with blockchain and some other new technologies and will help serve as digital signature and as a digital ID as well. Then I think that will be the most expected prospects for us.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's what I was expecting. Okay, Nadim, why don't you continue with the GDPR and compliance and other issues that you want to raise?
Yeah, sure. It's not necessarily something I want to raise, but it's something that we should know and we should talk about. The thing is, today, financial institutions face big challenges in the fact that they need to do two different things at the same time. On one hand, they need to stop bad behavior. And Ludas, you gave the example. I think you were talking about Danske Bank, where you had a lot of money laundering there for millions. I don't remember the number, but for millions. So basically, stopping bad behavior means doing everything around KYC checks, anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing, tax compliance, so on. And these elements, these things, require the banks and the financial institutions to access a lot of their customers' personal data. And on the other hand, they also need to comply with all these new data privacy laws and regulations. We talk about EIDAS, which is a common set of standards around the European Union, but you also have the EU GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. And you also have national data privacy laws that also are strict. If I understand well, in Turkey, your data privacy laws are very strict and very similar to GDPR in many ways. These data privacy laws limit the banks and the financials' access to the exact type of data they need. So this is why this whole system leads to a very high duplication in the KYC process and a very high inconvenience for the customer onboarding process. So this is why it is very important to have solutions that help the financial institutions to answer these two elements while respecting the privacy of their clients or of the citizens, because this is something very important. Because we've had a lot of privacy breaches and security breaches in different organizations around the world, whether they're financial organizations, like different or governmental organizations, or Facebook, even or others like this. So these things are very important to keep in mind. While in the other hand, also making sure that anything that happened with Danske Bank doesn't repeat itself. And I'm sure this is happening still today as we speak. Okay. So I think I'm good for now.
Okay, I thought somebody was blocking yours. Somebody doesn't want me to speak. Okay, so Bettigül Hanım.
Yes.
I love to say Bettigül. This is a wonderful name.
Thank you.
Tell us about new projects.
It's a difficult.
How can I understand the Z generation?
Actually, today we will continue to serve in our banking environment for sure, even though, yes, there are some regulations, even though, yes, there are some have-to-dos like wet signature, etc. And we are waiting to actually making them much more soft and still respecting to all KYC and AML issues for sure. We are not denying the importance of them, but we have to make it much more easier. So the technology, like my friend suggested, the biometrics, etc., I think will help enough to our procedures, let me say, and we are one of the banks that are using. Nowadays, actually, today, actually, it's the launch date today, and we are presenting on our booth, and I would like to welcome everybody to our booth downstairs. We launched Nekolay Öde, since our Nekolay is Öde Easy payments in English, actually. It's welcoming this time the merchants, not the customer side, but the merchant side. Because, yes, as banks in Turkey, we always think about the customer point of view. We are looking from their perspective. But also the merchants, the manufacturers, the craftsmen, etc., need digital onboarding too. So some digital solutions via some procedures, via some informations. So we did it. And actually downstairs I can show how we manage it, still respecting to all regulations for sure. But sometimes regulations makes you much more creative. So we use our creativity, and that's the reason we say Nekolay. So I think we solved the merchants' problems through QR code payments. In many countries, yes, it's very widely used. For example, in China, in Japanese country, or in Scandinavian countries. But still in Turkey, it needs some investments. So today we have begun it. And I think it will perform in a perfect way. So we would like to introduce you, and I would like to tell our story also downstairs.
Oh, wonderful.
Thank
Really,
you.
congratulations.
Yeah,
but
thank
I
you.
don't want Nekolede, I want Nezorode.
For your
my
child,
point of-
yes, yeah, from your point.
Thank you
Yes,
for that.
thank you.
I will be there.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, Ludas, how can we do more protection and what are your measures?
Yeah. So you see, basically, when we talk about the let's say the problems that we're or the issues that we're facing and about the protection, we're talking more about the citizens of the country. Yeah. So it's kind of well established now in each country, especially with the e-signatures, with the possibilities for the data accesses and so on, and the possibilities to control how the data is used, because the regulators are able to control that. Yeah, but when we come to the cross-border transactions or the cross-border user boarding process, then it comes again to different issues and different problems that the institutions are facing, and the user itself, because you know that now if you as let's say a Turkish guy is opening the account in Germany, an example, and you really cannot be sure about how your data will be used, how you will be protected, how to where to address your questions, concerns about the data privacy, and so on and so on. So I think that if talking about the future itself, so the question will be how these platforms, systems, and signatures and everything will be integrated together, how the legacy components will be integrated together. Because we still face quite a lot of questions and issues when accessing the different databases in different countries, and you know, even in the European Union, it's kind of a single market, but still there are quite a lot of questions about accessing some local databases and validating some data. And when we talk about wider markets, especially the cross-border markets, then it's again the issue from both sides, from the financial institution and from the user's perspective, because you are never sure about that. So I think that's what actually Cambridge is touching the questions about, controlling the data and actually giving the permissions to it. But on the other hand, it still has to be validated, because once validated, it doesn't mean that it's now valid again, because it might be changed, like, you know, stolen passport or person being sanctioned again and then something. So this we will see a need actually for integrating those different systems and different solutions in between.
Thank you so much. I think I will sleep nicely tonight. Okay, Oktay Hocam, why don't you continue with more research? What you're doing in our wonderful institute, Fintech, in Turkey?
Instead of commenting on research, I want to comment on the regulation side.
Okay, please.
The regulation, because another task is giving consultancy to the governmental institutions and bodies, as to technical people, have to apply the solution to the legislative point of view. As Ms. Betugül says, they have a good, new, brand new solutions. I wonder whether they are obeys the Turkish finance regulations. I don't know. Because the regulations coming slowly behind the solutions.
It doesn't obey my law, but I'm sure it obeys
the solutions, the new technology is much more quicker than the regulations. The regulator people are non-technical, because they are non-technical people, they need help to be educated, to be trained. The solution provider must be closer to them for non-profit relations to educate and train them to the new applications, new technologies, benefits of the technologies, so that the regulations come quick enough with the solutions on the market, and the citizens or the market merchants benefit from these solutions.
Sure.
This was my comment. Thank you.
Actually, if you haven't seen Yebze, I recommend you see it. It's a wonderful site, beautiful
It's great,
site.
yeah.
And it's one of the top institutes in the world that we measure 1 meter. I think
Yes,
it's
Meteorological Institute.
Echelon one at the top level, measures 1 meter with the speed of light. I've seen that lab, it's wonderful, really. Thank you for doing all those things,
Okay.
really wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, back to Eric. Talk about Istanbul and how it's flew. Okay, go ahead.
So I thought I'd pick up on a couple of things that have been mentioned there. So, you know, I think Nadim and Ludas both talked about this idea that as part of, you know, meeting regulations, we're gathering data. And that then in turn, when we've gathered data, when we gather data, we then have to protect it. And we also have to gather it in a way that means that we know we've gotten consent from the person that is offering it. And that's particularly important when you look at data like biometrics, which, you know, GDPR defines as particularly sensitive data. So our approach to that is, you know, you heard me mentioning lots of different ways that you could authenticate someone, face and voice and fingerprint. And, you know, that may make sense depending on the channel. If you're dealing with someone in a contact center scenario where someone's ringing you, probably voice is your only option. But in digital channels, what you can do is offer customers a choice. You know, so you say, you know, you can, if you wish, if you want to have a quick access with biometrics, please register your biometrics. We'll store them safely. We have lots of technology that sits behind that, obviously. But if you don't, you can use a knowledge factor. The second thing I think maybe, you know, Oktay was challenging industry to come up with solutions around decentralizing data and so on. So one of the initiatives we're part of is something called the Fido Alliance. And it's everybody from specialists like ourselves to companies like Google and Microsoft and MasterCard and so on. And what we can do now is we can do biometric authentication and other methods. We can do it in a way where there's never a central biometric database. So the biometric data is on the user's device and is controlled by them, and they can always, you know, get out of that, if you like. So I think that there's some interesting things happening to kind of bridge between these two responsibilities that we have. And part of what we do is try and bring that all together as in our platform to make it available to organizations like banks and so on.
That's really great. Thank you so much. Okay, well, you have listened to every different aspect of data identity and protection. Certainly, I didn't understand anything. But I'm sure there will be lots of people who understood and they had a lot of questions in their minds. So we have our forum friends, and we have some top Turkish institutes and banks. So we have about 5 minutes. I've been warned from the desk over there. So we may take 4 or 5 questions. And don't miss this opportunity. These guys are the experts, and we can never get them again like in this panel in the future. So please ask questions if you have. I think you're like me, didn't understand anything.
I think everything is crystal clear.
Crystal
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So maybe you can talk a little bit about more what's coming up from Active Bank.
Actually, this payment tool, I think, is important. Every bank now in Turkey is trying to make new products through QR code payments, like it's a little bit much more advanced in European countries. Now we are trying to do our best in our country too. Actually, I think first of all, we will try to make a little bit presentation about QR code payment. What is it? So what is the difference between card payments and QR code payments? So it's like credit card payments or card payments. We'll need a POS machine on the right-hand side and a customer with QR code payment feature. It's a mobile payment at the end of the day. So I think it will be supported, and we will support it in terms of innovation, Hocam, Oktay Hocam, like an innovation, and also for other features too. Yeah.
Okay. Questions, please. Questions. Hocam, you want to add anything from Twitter side?
We are waiting the legislative last comment on ID card because in Turkey it is very important. The technology is there. 37 million ID cards are already issued to the citizens, and the companies who produce some solutions with using the ID card are already there, and more than 100 institutions, banks, logistic companies are integrated with the ID card, and everybody waiting for the legislative release of the ID card, usage of the ID card from the Ministry of Interior. The same issue that we countered, the legislative side comes very, very slowly. We cannot convince them, don't worry, there is no risk to usage the ID card. They are thinking, those people in the Ankara.
Yeah.
We will try it.
Speed up. That's
Last
what I'm
information
saying.
for you, yes.
Okay. All right, then you want to add a few more comments? Yeah.
Well, it was basically going into talking about just, I wanted to focus a little bit about identity data for a second here. Today, there are 3 ways of establishing data, identity online. There's the traditional form of identity, which is social security number. And we've seen that these have grown more and more insecure. We can think of the Equifax hack in the US, where 150 million Americans saw their identity stolen, literally stolen, and they cannot do anything about it. And you also have the digitized version of that, the digitized centrally state-run databases that have become today a honeypot for hackers. We can think of, in India, there's a governmental entity called Aadhaar that holds all of the country's information. Yeah. And basically, 135 million Indians saw their identity leaked online. Yeah. And the other billion people actually have their identity on the dark web. And then you have the brokered type of identity, the third one, basically the Facebook, the Twitter of the world, where you give all of your data, all of your identity for free, just to use their service. And they can do anything they want with that. And basically this leads to whatever we've seen with Facebook and Cambridge Analytica, which is not Cambridge blockchain. I just need to reassure everybody here. We do the exact opposite of them. So these things are not working today, and this is why we need technology. There's new technology that can help. I've talked about it earlier. I'm not gonna repeat this because we need to finish. But I just wanna, help everybody here think of what type of new technologies there are today that can help prevent these things from happening again.
Okay, well, that's great. I personally work on digital transformation myself as well, different dimensions of transformation, and I understood today that one of the key dimensions is financial management, how to protect the data and so on. That's what I understood today. I would like to thank all the panelists, especially those guys who are coming from abroad. Thank you for coming. I'd like to thank you. Thank you for listening. I hope it was very productive and they have added some knowledge into your already data that you already have. Also thanking Coop. I think we're already done, finished. So thank you and hope to see you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Teşekkürler.
Teşekkür ederim.
Olur.
Bir fotoğraf alalım.
Tamam.
Tamam.
Sandalyeleri